I always like to start off with this because anyone that works for themselves or in any business, we always have too many tabs open in our brain. And what I try to teach my clients is how to do less and get more out of it using digital tools. So we already kind of went over why we're all here today. Can I just share a little bit about myself? So, like many of you, I have a lot of stuff going on in my life. So I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, a sister, caregiver, community volunteer, and I decided to become a business owner. And I found that even though I'm pretty productive and organized, it was a bit overwhelming to keep up with all the administrative activities that you have to do as a business owner. And so I decided I needed to figure this out. Because I didn't start out doing what I'm doing today. So I sat down and I took my 20 years of tech management background and my natural organizational skills and figured out how can I create a business that had kind of that routine stuff kind of going on its own. So I'm not having to do it all the time and put it on my to-do list. And I figured it out. I found that for really small businesses, there are a lot of digital tools available to us, and there's a lot of automation opportunities for small businesses that are very reasonably priced. And found that a lot of other business owners didn't know about these tools, and they were just pulling their hair out with trying to maintain their business. So I pivoted to what I'm doing today last fall. I've been working for myself for about 3 years, and last fall I realized that I figured this out for myself, and there were all these other people that were really struggling with the digital tools, and it was limiting their ability to be successful as a business owner. So I call this my 5 elements to get work off your plate, and always start with mindset, move into kind of what's your strategy for your business and how to do digital tools support that. And then we define those systems that you use, select the right digital tools for your business, and then automate. You can't really jump to automating from the beginning. And what I've learned with working with lots of different clients, and most of my clients are people that don't feel super tech savvy. I've had one client call herself a techno dinosaur. But she is now like totally in love with Zapier, but anyone can leverage digital tools. You just need a little bit of know-how and a little bit of vision on how you can really leverage them. And then your tools really must match your business. A lot of us, when we come from corporate, we're using like Salesforce or some other big CRM system, and I have seen businesses with like one person trying to use Salesforce as their CRM. It doesn't fit. It's overwhelming. It creates more work than it helps. So that's important. And then you can work smarter and not harder. So leveraging digital tools and automating really will get more bang for your buck. So this is so giant. So what we're going to do first is just identify some opportunities to automate. We'll talk about how you can reduce your work and then create some opportunities to actually incorporate this into your daily work. So, and I'd like to start with this as an example. So here's a farmer. He's pretty innovative with watering his plants, but for him to really be able to expand his crops, he's going to have to hire a lot of people, which impacts his ability to really make more money, right? Because he's got to pay these people. Whereas like a corporate farm, they're using technology, and they can have a huge farm where their costs are a little bit more fixed, or at least much smaller percentage of their total, so they're retaining more of their profits. And if you're a small business that is not leveraging digital tools, you're like this farmer. So one of the questions this is part of the mindset, is are you willing to stop being busy? Because as a business owner, you don't have that structure of going into the office at 9, leaving at 5, somebody kind of watching you. And it can be feeling like you're busy and working on stuff makes you feel like you're actually doing work. Whereas it really does, it really limits your ability to be out there meeting new people, building the relationships you need, networking, all that kind of stuff. So this is Celie, who I mentioned before. She's a professional organizer, and she's been doing this for like 20 years. And she is so much of a paper kind of analog person, but very organized. And she was just working so much because she would do her projects. They were usually one day. She had multiple team members working with her at least 4 days a week. And she'd do the project, go and organize a giant kitchen or whatever, and then come home and have all this administrative stuff to set up the invoice, to have them pay, and to pay her staff. And she just wanted really 30 minutes a day extra where she could hang out with her husband, watch Netflix. And what we found was the pain point for her was getting people scheduled onto a project, because her professional organizing thing was usually 2 staff members were supporting her. So she used to do it where she would text 2 or 3 people. They would text or email or call her back, and then if they couldn't do it, she'd have to go out to a bunch of other people. So it just took a ton of time to get a couple people working on a project with her. And so we decided that would be the area that we would focus on. And what we did was really simple, and I was talking to Tom about this. She was using her email, but she was not using her Google Calendar. And so we made a very simple solution for her where she would just create a calendar appointment. She would color code it with, did she have staffing finalized or not? And she would invite people to the calendar appointment from her, like 20 people that she would work with. And if they accepted, it was known that that meant that they were accepting the project. It was very simple for her, but it made a huge difference in her ability to manage. We also added in...
No, I'm just going to... So that cut a lot of calling and emails out of the process.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also had her set up like a kind of a new client intake form that she would fill out. And so she would put all the information in, and then it would create the calendar appointment for her. It would actually submit their information into her invoicing system, and it would add them to her mailing list. All of those things she was doing by hand as well. So it did a lot more than just creating the calendar appointment, but yeah, that was the main pain point for her. So what I wanted to do was a little exercise. I should have written that before, but is talk through what do you do in a week for supporting your business or your just your day-to-day work.
Well, if you're in transition, you're actually self-employed.
You are, yes.
As a salesperson selling your services. So I can see a lot of similarities here.
So I just made this list of common things that we're doing. The first column with the little box is, do you have a system? So if you meet someone at a networking event, do you know what you're doing with the business card that you receive? And do you have kind of a system for following up with them or to meet with them later for coffee? If not, don't check that. But if you do have a system, go ahead and check it. If you're using a digital tool, check the little robot.
I love it. I'm telling you, it's so...
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that third column.
So what differentiation are you making between you have a digital tool and you have a system?
Okay, so a system doesn't have to be using a digital tool at all. It could just be, the networking is the easiest thing. So I go to a networking event, I get 5 business cards. If you just put them on your business, on your office desk and do nothing with it, there is no system.
Okay.
But if you come home and you always link in with them and you send them a follow-up email or you try and schedule a meeting with them, that's a system. if there's something that's missing on there for you. I'm gonna go ahead, because I think I only have 30 minutes, right?
You have until 11:15.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give it another minute then. I thought Fred said it was 30 minutes and then 10 minutes for questions.
I mean, we have the room till 11:15, right, Ron?
Easily, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we have time.
Okay.
We need to automate informing our speakers.
The same information.
Because that clearly slipped through the cracks.
So when I went through this exercise, this is just part of my list, all the things that I was doing to support my business, and it was a little daunting, when I looked at it. And the next thing I decided to do was, well, what really requires me? What needs me to do it? It could be because it requires my expertise. It could be that it requires a personal connection, which you really can't automate those. And so what I'd like you to do is thinking about that list, circling what you really feel requires you, or starring it somehow. So again, when I did this, I found about 30% of those things really were something that I gave a lot of input into somehow. And so that meant that other 70% was stuff that I could automate in some way. Or it is also an opportunity to delegate if you have people working for you, as long as you train them on how you want it done. So what was kind of your percentage? Did you feel like you felt like some of them were definitely things you could offload somehow?
Oh, yeah, I was over 70%.
Yeah. How about you guys? Did you find any that were?
Yeah, it's probably about 30%
Yeah.
that you really need to do.
Mm-hmm. Anyone higher than that where they're like, no, I have to be involved in 70%?
I'd
Yeah.
say I felt that I needed to be involved in these, but I don't know if I'm missing something here. Maybe I'm assuming that I need to be more involved than I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it could be also that when we have a system, you can actually figure out what you can automate in there, right? So if you think about just a simple one is if you sign up for a newsletter and there's usually an email that comes back, you're putting yourself in that email, right? You're putting an intention in there, welcoming, it could be a story or whatever. So those are ways that you kind of infuse it with your personality, but it doesn't really need you to send that email.
Oh,
Right?
I see.
All right, so what's possible if you get that other stuff off your plate? If you were able, if 30% is what you really need to be doing, if you were to offload that other 70%, what's possible with your time?
Well, sleep.
Yeah.
It's high on my priority. But I mean, networking and other higher value, anything that can be automated probably isn't. They're high value in that they have to be done.
Right.
But they're not necessarily high value as far as bringing money in the door.
Right. Yeah, that's actually what that third column is with the little dollar sign, is if you think about what really is directly income producing for you. I mean, and if you're looking for a job, it is going out and networking, it is setting up those coffees. Those are connections that you need to make the connection that will get you a job. Anyone else? So, how do you get work off your plate? And most people start with personal productivity, which is certainly a place to start, because if you're totally chaotic, you cannot automate that. But they usually go to delegation, right? Because if there's too much for me to do, I must need some help. But there's always hidden costs of that. One, there's obviously the cost of paying that person, but the other is just managing them, hiring them, training them, all those pieces. So I have 20 years as a technology person, and we always go to automation first. We look to how can a digital tool or coding actually do the work for us versus doing it ourselves before we go to hiring. And when you own your own business, that is just, it's so important to do that first. It's also less expensive to go the automation route. It takes time to set it up, but over the long run, it's a lower cost solution.
What's usually your payback period for an automation?
Yeah, so one of the things I do is like evaluating your opportunity cost, so you kind of have that understanding, right? Because if you're charging people, let's say $50 an hour, and you're spending 10 hours a week on administrative stuff that you can automate, that's a significant sum. So it may be faster for some than others. Most people feel an immediate benefit to their time. Yeah. So if you leave with nothing else, I just want you to think of, do not first ask, who do I hire? I want you to first ask, how can I automate it? And we'll talk some more about what are some ways of doing that. So wanted to introduce Cindy because she had a lot of technology. She had like some of the most expensive technology I've ever seen, but she was really only using it for a newsletter. And she wasn't using it to really manage her business. So what we first did, what she wanted was, she was putting on her first conference, like a weekend-long conference, and she needed more time to focus on that than managing her to-do list, supporting her current clients. And so we defined kind of a cadence of how she operates, which she did not have, which meant she assigned kind of like a due date to her clients to provide feedback to her so that she could do her work with them. She's a style consultant. So she would shop for them, and she would create outfits for them, and so they needed to tell her what they needed. You know, I'm going to an interview, I'm presenting at a conference, I'm going to, a date night, whatever. But at the time, it was just happening ad hoc, and it was coming in from everywhere, and so it was just hard for her to keep track of what was happening. So we defined kind of a cadence so that she could ask her clients to communicate what they needed by like Thursday, I think was her day every week, so that she could get it back to them within 2 days. And then we set up kind of a monthly email communication that went out to her clients, reminding them of what their responsibilities were that month and what dates. Because her clients are highly successful professional women, and they were busy. They had families, they had really stressful jobs. They were not sitting there wondering when should they be sending Cindy a note asking for her help. So for her, it was pretty simple with, setting up the expectations, defining those emails that would go out regularly, and then automating it. And her clients loved it because they were busy and they needed the reminders. So she was using Infusionsoft, which is a CRM all-in-one for small businesses, being able to have a tool that has the contact management, the email marketing, and automation in one makes it much, much easier to manage everything that you need to be working on. All right, so I wanted to go through each of these elements in a little bit more detail, but are there any other questions or thoughts coming up we've got this far?
I'll just say that a thought that crossed my mind is there's so much technology, so many tools, and it's hard to know about all those tools and which ones can help you eliminate a lot of the work for yourself. So that's kind of that can be an issue for people. And naturally you can help them with that. But I know that, for example, I've never heard of Infusionsoft. I've heard so much about Salesforce, which is like for big companies. But that's such a big challenge. And
it is a huge challenge, yes. And what I find is people will go out and buy one digital tool for the problem that they're having right then, and then they're having another problem and they'll get a different tool, and these two things don't talk to each other. And the other problem is maybe one of those could have done both of those things. So it's just the strategy behind how do you set up this technology, because you have a technology strategy even if it's not super intentional. Right. So mindset, this is, I mean, everyone talks about mindset, but when you're trying to automate things, you have to look at stuff. It's a shift from looking at every task as unique to seeing the value of reusability. It's looking at tasks, or shifting from tasks to workflows. Because if you're thinking about it as a workflow, you can see how information goes from step to step and what people might need in those steps. It's a shift from doing everything yourself to seeing the opportunity cost of that time that you're spending on that. And then finally, it's just being open and willing to embrace digital tools, because it can be a challenge if you're not super comfortable with it. But we can, there's a way to incorporate them without being overwhelmed. So in the strategy piece, what I do is I actually walk through the most common operations of a business, because even if you're one person, you still have the same operations as a business with 100 employees. You still have a sales process, you have to manage prospects, you have to create contracts of some kind usually, you have to invoice or receive payment, and you have to onboard that new client. Unless you're selling a product, you're doing all of those things. And then finally, you have to communicate with them while you're doing the delivery of it. So here we look at the operations and define those steps and identify what's possible and reusable in those steps. What communications could you be using? What tools are really needed? What information do you need from them to be able to start your work faster? What information could you be providing them so that they feel like they made a purchase and then they feel like they're made a good decision, so that they're informed. So that's what we spend time here, and I call it digital operations. Because we all, again, have operations, but how do you leverage the technology? And so systems, this is where you just lay out your intentions. So what are your outcomes, right? So networking is, most people are doing networking at some time, and it is a huge time waster if you just go and get business cards and then do nothing with it, right? So I just went to a networking thing. Round trip, it took me about an hour to get there, and I was there for 2.5 hours, and I got 10 business cards. If I don't do anything with it, then why did I go? So a system would be, well, what are your possible outcomes? I link in with people. I send them a note to possibly have coffee, because maybe there was, a synergy there, like we both work in the same area. I mean, even when I first met Tom, I was like, we need to follow up later, because there's, I think, some ways that we could work together. And then finally, maybe for me, I want them on my mailing list. So those are the 3 outcomes. And so I've created a system for how do I take action, and it makes it so much easier. When I come back with those 10 cards, it takes me 15 minutes.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. You said some would be potential clients, some would be partners, and what was the third one?
The third one is, just getting on my mailing list. Maybe they didn't have an immediate need for working with me.
But that would be a potential client.
Yes.
But potential client, a potential partner, and what was the third one?
I said coffee. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I thought you said.
I said LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I usually
I
link in
see.
with everyone. Yeah.
Okay. That part of it. Okay.
So I've created just reusable content. I'm using Gmail, the templates in Gmail, to send the follow-up, so I don't have to write it. It's already written. I also have an automation that when I want to meet with coffee, it sends them out a note, and it sends a couple reminders because we're all busy. And I can't tell you how many people are like, I'm so glad you followed up and followed through. I want to meet with you, but it's never on the first email for some reason. So that's the system mindset. You have to define the steps to get to your desired outcome. If you jump into automating before you have the system, then it's going to kind of be a lot of experimentation and wasted time trying to figure out what your system is. You'll be like backing into it. And then we look at digital tools, and I have a host, and I'll share this later, but I have tools that I prefer using, and depending on the type of business, you may need one over another. But I do that. I call myself a digital tools matchmaker because I have done a ton of research on tools, and depending on the situation, I can make a quick recommendation on what works best. So these are common things, and I think if you're looking for a job even, looking at the online appointment scheduling tools would be really beneficial because you can go back and forth with like 5 emails just to schedule a time. And with this, you can connect it up, and it'll be able to see when you're available. It just makes meeting with someone so much faster. Networking follow-up, we already talked about. Onboarding new clients, part of automation is being consistent with your intentions, because if you're one person and you're you want to send out a welcome email, but you haven't put it on your to-do list, and now you're sending it 3 days after they finalize the relationship with you, then you're you're missing an opportunity. Obviously, newsletter subscribers, and then getting paid is a big one. It's surprising how many people I meet that don't have a way of really getting paid. They're doing invoices in Word, and they don't have it connected to any of the payment portals or whatever. So these are just kind of most common, will give you a lot of benefit to your time. And then we automate. And once you have all those other pieces in place, automating is much simpler. With the automation, what we do is we look at what kind of data do you need about that person, and then what is kind of the cadence that you want your communication to go out on, and we go ahead and set it up.
What do you mean by cadence?
Oh, cadence. So maybe this is my word. I use cadence as schedule.
Oh.
Yeah. But to me, it's a little bit more like, it's one, what are your intended communication touch points, and expected returns from them. So one thing with automating is that you don't want your automations to be like one giant automation for your business. You want to break it up into kind of modules so that one, if there is ever a problem, you can really pinpoint where it is in the automation. And two, you can reuse your modules because usually there's something reusable about how you're communicating. I wanted to introduce you to Debbie because Debbie actually does personalized gift giving. That's her business. She actually goes around the world and she gets jewelry. I'm usually wearing something of hers from people that are making it in different areas of the world. And so being very personal is important to her. And we talked a lot about, well, if I'm automating it, am I still personally connecting with my clients? And what we determined is yes, because if you are not being consistent with your communication, or if you're completely not doing it because it never gets on your to-do list, then you're not developing that relationship anyways. So that's one. And two, you can still infuse your process with personal touch points, like a phone call or a special card that you send out or a gift at some point in your relationship with them. But the consistency of communicating as you intended is what really differentiates you from someone that is intentional in creating a client journey that your clients appreciate, and that feeling that you're trying to communicate with them. And for her, we've actually set up a CRM. She's creating a whole new kind of business model, so we're setting up how is she actually delivering that. So we're looking at all of those pieces. All right. So, hi there.
Hi. Are these our new dudes?
What?
I didn't make it to the opening, so it's
Oh.
my first time here.
Well, hello. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
So, just just wanted you to take a breath for a second. Were there any other questions that you've heard so far that have come up that I haven't answered?
No questions, but just good information.
Okay. Yeah.
How do you choose? I think the woman here was asking earlier about tools. How do you choose your tools when there's so many?
Yes. So I use two things. One is called G as in George, the number 2.com is a website that it's kind of like crowdsourcing reviews of software. Have you ever used that? So it's really great because what it does is it creates a categorization of digital tools. So if you're looking up like invoicing tools, when you put in invoicing, you can look at the category and it will actually list all of those different tools that are in that category, and it'll put it on a 4 block, with like niche, leader, I don't know what the other, there's 4 categorizations. And one, it tells you what it is, but it also tells you the competitors. So maybe someone told you about FreshBooks, so you can put that in and see who else does the same thing. And it just, because it's really hard when you just search for invoicing tools and all these things come up and you have no clue as to what's good, what's not good, and then you can look at people's reviews and they're real users, so it's very helpful. And the other thing, because I'm about automation, I look at Zapier, Z-A-P-I-E-R. So this is a tool that integrates different digital tools, and if it doesn't integrate through Zapier, I'm more hesitant to use it, because then that means that I'm going to be the integration between one tool and the other tool.
The first website was g2.com.
Yep, yeah.
Spell this one again.
Zapier, Z-A-P-I-E-R. Joy, did you have a question?
I did. I know you said in every business is basically the same, but I was trying to write them down, but I kind of...
Oh, you mean like the operations?
Yes, it was schedule, networking.
Oh, you want to go back? Oh, there it is. So appointment scheduling, this is called an online appointment scheduler. Most of them have a free, like you set up one appointment type for free.
Right. Like Calendly.
Yeah, like Calendly, Acuity, there's tons of different ones, but those two are the bigger ones. Networking follow-up, so you can obviously automate this with some sort of an email marketing, but the other is Gmail. How many of you use Gmail? Anyone use Hotmail? Yeah, you use both. So both of them have these tools, but I feel like Gmail is a little easier. But when you go to send an email, I don't think I'll be able to show you out here, but when you go to send an email, on the bottom, you could press send, where there's actually like a little drop down, and you can schedule later. So it's kind of nice if like you come home after your networking event, it's 10 o'clock at night, and you set it all up, and you don't want to look like the creepy person that's stalking these people you just met, and you can send it for the next morning, or set it up.
That would be using Gmail online. Is that available in the app?
On the app, like on your phone?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that it is, but I don't usually use it on there.
Okay.
But that's if you use a web-based version of Gmail as opposed to an email client, which is what I typically use because I have so many different email addresses coming from different sources, not just Gmail.
So are you using like Outlook? What's your client?
It's MacMail.
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't know about Mac.
It's the same, same concept.
I know Outlook has
Does
the
it?
same ability.
Oh,
Yeah.
it does, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Let me
not sure
switch.
about Mac Mail
Let me
though.
switch, yeah.
You should just look because it's probably there. These things are not super obvious.
Yeah.
The other one, yep, sorry.
For Outlook, you have to be careful because if you're using the app instead of online, your app has to be running even when you
Oh, when it's
when you
supposed to
schedule
be
it.
scheduled.
So
yeah.
if you schedule it and shut your computer down, it won't go until you fire up your computer again.
Yes, and both of them have the ability to create an email template. So on Gmail, you can create an email template. It'll include the subject line and then all the content. And that's just helpful when, like, you go, you have a meeting, you could write your email. They don't know that you've used this email 20,000 times before. but I would write it in a way that's more generic, and you can then add the more custom pieces in there. Obviously, like their name. I used to put in like name, capitals, then comma, then try to highlight other pieces, and I would forget and just send an email. It's terrible. I guess I'm not as detailed as I would hope I would be. So I just make it super generic. So just in case I hit send before I customize it, it's not going to look totally ridiculous. But yeah, look at what's available in your email. Most of them have scheduling. Most of them have templates, and those are two things that will make doing your work much easier. Were there other questions on that? Yeah.
I was thinking about costs, because I mean Gmail's free, so that's a plus. I guess there are a lot of free tools, that you can use. When would costs go higher? I'm thinking.
Yes. No. I think if you're on Gmail, you have a lot of tools there that are. If you're paying for the business, you're also, you just I think have more storage. So you get the same with the free Gmail. One is Forms is free and also very helpful. When do you need to go up? I try to go free as long as possible. My other favorite tool is Wave Financial. So like if you send invoices, a lot of people think of QuickBooks because it's been around for so long. But Wave is all online. It's very simple to use. It's free for the software, so they only charge you for the fee, on a credit card or some sort of financial transaction, which all of them charge for that. So I have done some analysis. Until you're charging over like $150,000 a year, it's not cheaper to be on QuickBooks. It's actually cheaper to be on Wave. And Wave makes it easy to create like a link. So you have a product or a service and you just want somebody to buy. You can create a link, incorporate it into your website, and then push the buy now button, and it's already hooked up to your financial.
That's WAVE Financials?
Yes, Wave. I think the website is waveapp.com. I don't think accountants love Wave, but I was using QuickBooks because my accountant wanted me to, and I was like, one never goes in there, and two, why am I in it? I hate using it, so I moved, and she didn't care, so I think that. Any other questions? Yeah.
Have you ever used Dubsado as like a?
Yeah, I have looked at Dubsado. It's not my favorite one. Who do you know that uses it, or do you use it?
I've been thinking about it because that and Honey Books, I think, is what I was also looking at. But I've heard like a lot of rave reviews about Dubsado. Really.
I know people are like totally committed to Dubsado.
Yeah.
What is it?
So it's a CRM all-in-one. I prefer ActiveCampaign, but what Dubsado does really well is it has the contract incorporated in it. And why I don't like it is it doesn't actually have like the email marketing component to it. But depending on what type of emails you're doing, it may not matter. So, but it has the online appointment scheduling. I think it has like some sort of a tool like that, so you then not have to use a Calendly.
Yeah, and just to even elaborate more on it, it's you can basically, it's like a whole process of basically what she was saying here, the appointment, the networking, you onboard the client, just very straight through to the payment, the invoice, and the contract. So
Yep.
it's all in just one system.
How do you spell that?
It is
DUBSADO.
.com. DUBSADO.
Dubsado.
Yeah, it is a cool name. I think that one's like it's very reasonably priced. That one's like
It is.
$35 a month.
It is, and they'll do all these steps, and also, it's just, they'll do a free demo and everything, and just see how it goes.
Are there any free ones?
Yes. So like Sendinblue is one. So everyone talks about MailChimp. I have to say I hate MailChimp. To me, it is not super intuitive. And the way that they've changed also makes it very limiting. But Sendinblue is much more intuitive, and it has the kind of CRM component to it, which is not just a list of your contacts, but you can include notes about them. It has some automation, and you can also do your email marketing.
Does it have a cost? sending them?
It does, but they have a free level based on like number of contacts or number of emails you send out. So it just depends on how you're using it.
Are you familiar with what I'm considering is less annoying CRM? It's made specifically for individuals and small businesses. I haven't used it personally, but the person I know who's like highly recommending it because it's $10 a month, and there's no limits on how many people and how much space you can use and all of that. And so I can't tell you all of that.
I have not tested that one out, so I can't say, but I would make sure that it's, some of these are just CRMs. They're just a contact list. So you put all your information about your contacts in there, and they don't have email marketing, and they don't have a lot of automation. You may be able to email one-on-one with a client through it, but to me, I think the email marketing was, yeah, because you're going to ultimately want to send out, you know, newsletters or promotions or something like that. So, yeah, and like I said, I like ActiveCampaign because it's kind of a hub and it integrates with anything, and it's also very intuitive. So I do look for tools that are well designed because a lot of people don't like dealing with super complicated. The more complicated the technology, the harder it is to learn. So. What are my other tools? So ActiveCampaign, Wave, I like Calendly, Acuity is great. If you do, if you're like a coach and you sell a package of meetings, it has a package feature, which allows so you can send your client a link, they can schedule up to 3 meetings, and when that's done, it's done. So you don't have to keep track of how many appointments that person had with you. So they all have different things that they're good at. It just depends on your business. All right. So what I like to do here is hopefully you've gotten at least one thing that was like, I've got to try that out. And so to ensure that you actually take action, what I'd like you to do is think about scheduling it with yourself. Schedule, you know, half an hour to figure out that digital tool or that process that you want to set up. And take the time to do it. And I would do it in like the next week or so. Is there anything that anyone's like, yeah, I'm gonna try this?
I'm going to figure out which CRM I'm going to get because I've been toying around with that for probably forever. And now that I'm here, that's one of the reasons I came here, so I can be committed.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I'm gonna look at Wave and Financial.
You are going to look at Wave? Oh, so because you do VA, that's like your business. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I love Wave. So many cool tools. So what I want you to do is to think about and imagine what it would be like if you had some of these things automated for your business. You know, where you don't have to have this giant to-do list every night and you're kind of tired. You're working on weekends trying to catch up with your invoicing and things because you have digital tools that are taking care of it and doing it as you would like, you know, sending reminders. That's the other thing I like about Wave is it'll send a reminder, you know, before your due date or so many days after your due date. I mean, that makes it just simpler. You don't have to worry about some of those pieces. So if you're interested in working with me, I invite you to do that. I do enjoy working with business owners on what tools make sense for their business. But if you're someone that is kind of done working so hard and impatient to get results, or you want to avoid the high cost of hiring, and also the high cost of making a lot of digital tool selection they don't work. I've found a lot of people, it's kind of weird, they buy these tools, they don't like them, and then they keep paying for them.
Oh my.
So frequently I'm saving people money because we just do an audit of their stuff. But if you wanted to schedule time with me, I have this networking follow-up system that I've created. It has kind of template emails and a system and how you would go about doing it. I would send that to you. And this is a little automation, but if you text it to 31996, the word work smarter, it actually sends you a link to schedule, which I love this little tool. So I did not bring my prize today, but I will definitely send it to you. It's a book I love. It's called Built to Sell. And I like it not because we're all selling our businesses, but because it has that mindset of how do you set up your business and your systems in a repeatable, standardized way so that it doesn't require you doing all the work all of the time. So take all this stuff home and then pick someone and send you the little document that I have. That one actually has all the technology that I recommend and how I made those recommendations when I evaluate, just so you have some additional information on that. And then I like to close with this because, is that my computer? That's so weird. I like to listen to this book probably once a year, The Magic of Thinking Big. It's a really old book, but he just has such practical ideas. So ideas in themselves are not enough. The idea for getting more business, for simplifying work procedures is a value only when it is acted upon. So I appreciate your time today, and I hope it was helpful for you to think through the different ways of leveraging digital tools in your business and your work.
All right.
Thank you.